You're watching Morning at NTV.
All right, let's get to the big story. Now, last week, the president did write a letter to the Minister of Finance, and he was saying, you guys be more serious. We need to collect more tax money because we need money to move this country to mid-row income status, among other things. And one of those proposals was that usage of social media should be taxed, especially this Lugambo, in the words of the president. And there's been a lot of talk about this. And so while people say we need to broaden the tax base, but are we targeting the right areas? I don't know. I'm joined by Julius Mukunda. Julius is the coordinator, do they call you coordinator, of Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group. Wow, good morning.
This time you got it.
Eventually you do. You have to, because, I mean, hey, it's a mouthful, but interesting. How are you guys doing?
Doing well.
You're doing well?
Doing well.
Okay, budget process, everything is moving on fine. I know that since the law has changed, the budget is available before it is read. As opposed to back then, would have to wait. People would sit on their radios. Back then, I'm as if young, but I'm also as if old. You know, so I remember back then when people had a lot of inquisitiveness, they would sit around radios to listen.
Oh yeah, yes, and but the challenge now is that actually those who are doing the budgets actually don't have them. You know that they took them to Parliament and then got them out immediately. And they, so those are the challenges with the budget process, I think, of planning for the nation and budgeting for the nation. It doesn't come very easy. But I think as far as we are concerned as an organization, I think the process is open. Everybody can participate. And as you know very well, Uganda was the second best in Africa in terms of the budget transparency. And but of course, I mean, we still face challenges.
Budget transparency. So, well, that sounds like good news, but then what? Because people look at the budget and think, is this thing working for me? Yes. If I understand budget transparency, would that mean the whole process, you can see and know what's happening? There's not so much to hide.
Yes. So,
yes, stick on that. But then, anyway, let's get to the nitty-gritty.
You can go to that actually, at the end of it, okay, what do I get? Fine.
Because it's important for that local person deep in wherever the case might be. They want to know, how is this thing working for me? Anyway, let's talk about the president's proposals.
Yes.
He says, look, we need to broaden the tax base. I'm one of those who actually agree that we need to broaden the tax base. It's not fair that the low-hanging fruits, who are those in the corporate world, are targeted each time. I look at my paycheck, I'm sure you do yours.
Definitely.
And you see how much has been slashed off and you're thinking, wow. I'm hoping this will eventually bring services to me. I'm not too sure that happens at the end of the day. But then I keep thinking, not everybody is paying their fair share, and that bothers me. Does it bother you?
I mean, remember we were here last year when MPs said they're not going to pay taxes on their incomes. I mean, you know, and we are still. I mean, it's a living case. It's there, but I think there is no question that we need to expand our taxation base as a nation. Why? Because our debt numbers are just shooting up high. Our growth is not as we are projecting. We are projecting to be at 6.5%, but we are on 4.3%. Poverty levels, are increasing again, and yet we want to beat the middle income, to be a middle income country by 2020. So all the numbers are against us, and the only thing to do is to ensure that we expand the taxation base. Now, what the president said, I think, from my perspective, is that it's a cash cow. It's a cash cow, and it's a low-hanging fruit that data must be taxed. I mean, of course, he said Rugam. Probably he was trying to spice it up. But let's look at it broadly. It has its advantages and disadvantages. In case one is the disadvantage is that, of course, is that it is going to increase the cost of data. That's number one. Number two is that a number of young entrepreneurs a number of most people who are in the innovation business and the young ones tend to use more of data, the ICT business, than probably me and you. And as such, putting a tax on it, definitely you are sort of curtailing and making the process a bit more expensive. But there is a way you can do that. So that's the disadvantages. The advantage is that you can get money out of it, but not hurting those who are trying to come up. For example, if you decide and say, every 1 GB and above, we won't start taxing it. Because you remember, even in the electricity business, that the first units are charged less than the upper units. The reason being that they wanted those smaller consumers, people who have small bulbs in the house, are able to pay less. So if you set it from that perspective, then you are able to collect resources from that. And actually, a very good estimate, around 400 billion, we could be able to collect from that. But the president has forgotten one important element, that at this particular moment in time, we have no capacity to collect this money we are talking about. Because we just rely on MTN, whatever you provide us is what we are going to get. You are going to rely on UTL, whatever you provide us is what you are likely to get. So I think the president, the first and the foremost part, in terms of his campaign to expand taxation base, which we told him, is capacitate Uganda Revenue Authority. Because currently, they have a budget of 331 billion. They want 444. You have not given them that one. So if you do not capacitate them to be able to have enough resources and equipment so that they can be able to go and cross-check and audit these telecommunication companies, then I can tell you these telecommunication companies are likely to collect this money and keep it. So, yes, we can go ahead and say, we can say go ahead and tax them, but I can tell you is that our capacity to collect this money is highly limited.
Capacity aside, is it a viable thing to do? Because like you're saying, you know, young people, innovation. I mean, just the other day, government injected billions of shillings into Wi-Fi for, you know, folks around Kampala to be able to access and so on. I don't know if we have gotten value for that money that we injected, because they realized this thing is important. We need our young people to get connected and begin to think, you know, but also it eases communication for many a person, because, you know, back then people used to spend a lot of money on phone calls, on text messages, but now WhatsApp has made it easier.
Yes.
And so you find, if I'm not mistaken, that people are spending less on communication.
No, you are...
And so that means that money can go elsewhere. But now you're saying you want to tax it and push the cost of communication a little higher. That's why I'm asking about its viability.
I think I can call that on poor planning. On the other hand, you want to provide the public good free of charge. And on the other part, you want to start taxing it. So before you started to offer a public good, you should have first thought that actually 3 or 4 days down the road, because this thing is not 1 year old. You're going to start taxing it. So I think it's a matter of now joining hands to, you know, bring the planning together to ensure that what you're going to plan in the near future, it is in line with actually what your goal intended to achieve as a nation. But let's look at the viability of this. URA is telling us that it is getting less and less money from voice calls, which means me and you will no longer use airtime. We are using WhatsApp. But also is that, I don't know if you have realized it, if a friend of yours calls you from abroad, it's a Ugandan number or a Kenyan number that appears, and you are like, hey guy, I thought you were in London. Said, yes, I'm in London, but your number is as if you are in Ichikuo, something like that. Which means that also tax evasion has also has become a bit more smart and trickier.
I thought that's roaming when that happens. Or is there a buffet way around it as well? I don't know.
I can tell you somebody sits and uses their numbers in London.
Yeah, that happens. That's what I thought.
And you got a number appears here.
That's when you're roaming, not so?
When you are roaming is okay. When you are roaming, when you have MTN in London, you can still call here. But somebody is staying in London with a 1+ number. But they call here in Kampala, and all of a sudden it is a 254 number from Kenya appearing, but somebody is calling from London. And at first I thought probably my phone had a problem. But when I tried to ask, he said, yes, actually it can happen. If you're using Skype, if you're using these data calls to call on your number, then people tend to shift and evade taxes. So you pay less than what you would have actually paid on in a voice call. So those tax evasions also, I think, require governments everywhere also to shift and decide and say, how do we tap on this so that we can be able to generate more resources. Actually, the politician should also think beyond data, should think beyond online shopping, because it is also a booming business. And with online shopping, it is killing our business in Chikubu. Because me and you now are no longer going to Chikubu to look for clothes. You will sit on your desk, punch in your numbers, the shirt is going to be brought at your door, at your doorsteps. You are likely not to pay taxes in terms of sales tax if you are using online shopping. So I think the president needs to broadly think about that. It's good that he has come up with this idea. But I think for us, even from a civil perspective, that the president, we need a debate in terms of how do we expand taxation debate without affecting those who are coming up. I think it's very important. But it's also important that each and every Ugandan pays a fair share of their taxes. So that the bad laws we have, we remove them, like the MPs I tell you about. But let me tell you one thing I have come to realize actually. It's not about that we are paying taxes. It's not a debate. When you told me last night and I asked my team, I said, guys, we're going to have this debate. If you see the conversation is about why. What are they going to use our money for? I think people are against paying taxes, not because they are high or low, but because how their taxes are being utilized. Because in Uganda, you can't spend a single day without a scandal. Because all of a sudden, they tell you MPs are going to get more money. Then you're like, okay, where is this money coming from? It's your taxpayers' money. And a colleague of mine last time said, Julius, this money is for the referendum. The money is looking money for the referendum. And it was a bit funny, but now you are like, okay, the referendum is coming. It's not in the budget, but somebody has to look for money for it anyway. So I think the debate now we need to, the government must show us how effective our taxation, our taxes are being utilized. Do we have enough drugs in hospitals? Are we having quality education? In Kampala here, if they say please pay extra, you are likely to pay it with little resistance because you can see that some traffic lights are working. But if you go in your district and they say please pay extra, you are likely to resist, or even outside Kampala, simply because you don't see the value of the taxes that you pay. So I think the government also needs to invest more in terms of ensuring that our taxes are being utilized properly. That's, for me, another take I would want government to be able to invest in seriously.
Let's talk a bit about the informal sector. There's a lot of money in the informal sector. Yesterday I was having a chat with somebody who works downtown Kampala. And by downtown, in this case, I mean below Kampala Road. That's usually my colloquial understanding of downtown Kampala. Anything below Kampala Road.
It's down anyway.
And so this person, operates, in those malls. And this person was telling me about, not just them, but how several other business people are making so much money. These guys bank millions of shillings net profit on a daily basis. And this person was being very honest with me and saying, but truth is, we're not paying as much in terms of taxes. Yes. They do pay some taxes, yes, and so on. But they were being very honest of, you know what, we are not paying our fair share. And a lot of that is happening in the informal sector. How do we tap into it? Because I would imagine it would actually lessen pressure on the formal sector. Perhaps the president would not have to have a lot of trouble now running around, how do we look for more money? If it is social media now, this WhatsApp, Lugambo, and so on. Maybe the conversation will not even get there.
I mean, I've just received information that there are only 136,000 Ugandans who earn $1 million, according to National Social Security Fund. Now, it tells you we are coming, how many? The population was saying 41 million now?
About 41
projections. So now you can see there is a very small group that is being targeted. So the tax burden is so heavy for you. So when the government can be able to tap into the informal sector. Now the challenge is that when you say informal sector, everybody thinks that is this woman who is carrying kabaragara on her head in the town. But the informal sector in Kampala is too huge to be called an informal sector, because you have somebody who is actually, that one you're talking about, banks money. There are those who don't. They have their money at home, wherever they are. They bank a little money, but you have serious people who are doing serious business. They are doing export and import. Now, what we told the URA is that these people in Chikubu, 90% of them are involved in export and import. Because before you bring goods and services in Kampala, you must have a TIN number. Start from there.
So we should have the excise duty?
And no, actually you don't need to. But you start from there and follow people's returns. Because you
that
see,
seems like so much work. And like you said earlier on, URA does not have capacity to even do the bit that
if we want more money, we must invest more. Let me give you one life example why we need to invest more. Go to Entebbe Airport. I've told this case. Go to Entebbe Airport. There is only one scanner. At midday, Qatar Airways, Emirates, Ethiopia, and other flights land at the same time. The airport is full. So what happens at the scanner? They begin now to sample out. Because now the line is very full and the scanner can't take all of the paper to go. So that's what I think about investing in our revenue collection machinery to be able to collect more money. It is a simple mathematics. So if we don't do that, if we don't put a department for our people returns, then it means that people are jumping out of the taxation bracket. So you import more, declare less, and you have finished. But if there is somebody who's going to follow up that one, then that becomes an issue. Let me tell you, the day NTV here declares less returns, Madam will be on this door.
Of course.
Immediately.
Because, they track us as
because they track you. You have an address. They know this what you're supposed to be earning. But the Chikuwa man has imported goods worth 200 billion. He has paid the taxes. They have declared at the border. But in terms of income here, he doesn't. But there is nobody who's going to follow them to do that. Not only businessmen. Look at the chambers, these advocates. Look at the hospitals. We have the private hospitals. Look at the private schools, everything. If you do not follow the chain up to the declaration, I can tell you we're losing a lot of money. And I have even the government, there's something that puzzled me, that the government pays suppliers. I have paid you as a supplier, and you declare less in your returns to URA, and nobody's following that. So we are losing money. So I encourage the president to bring a debate, open it up, and I can tell there's so many solutions we can expand our taxation base from where we are stagnating at 13.7% to probably 18 or 20% of GDP.
You know, I talked about, below Kampala Road, but then I remembered not very far from here, there are offices, there are companies that are operating, and at the end of the month, this fellow has, say, 10 staff members. And at the end of the month, each of them is given their pay in an envelope. That's happening not far from here, because you might say downtown Kampala, oh, that's deep down there, but not far from Parliament, not far from Ministry of Finance, ironically.
Yes.
And people are paid in envelopes, and that means there's no tax remitted, let alone NSSF and all these different things. Yes. Is it the law that is lacking? Is it implementation? How do we fix this?
It is enforcement. Again, you got enforcement, because for a company to be registered, once you register, you have an address. For heaven's sake, once in a while, enforcement agencies should be able to monitor. The labor standards, for example, should be able to come here and say, okay, here is a company with 10 people. Do you have NSSF numbers? Do you have a TIN number? So that once they get that information, then it collaborates with other government agencies, and then they follow it up. But if the government is not going to put money in these agencies, and for me especially URA, because that's where the money is coming from, URA must work with the Uganda Registration Bureau and say these are the companies in Kampala, for example. How many of these companies in Kampala are providing returns? And are they the right returns or not? Just start from there. We can increase we increase our taxation base. So we lack enforcement, and in Uganda, it's not only enforcement in revenue collection; it's almost enforcement in everything. We have the nice laws, the best, but when it comes to enforcement, then it begins to become selective. I told you when we started the campaign on taxation, that's when KCC appeared on our door and said, guys, you've never paid the proper tax for the last 5 years. I'm like, okay. You have known it today that I have not paid for the last 5 years.
But why haven't you paid property tax for the last 5 years?
I mean, my landlord. It was not my landlord. So they said, why these guys, where are they located? Then they checked the property. And we had just entered that property for 1 year only. And they said, oh, you had not paid for 5 years. I told my landlord, you had never paid for 5 years. Yet I'm here telling everybody to pay taxes. So, I mean, we cleared, but it tells you it is just selective. You know, it is not a normal process whereby you have an enforcement department wakes up in the morning and begin to search and enforce rules and regulations. But it just means, oh, you made a statement last time, but who is this guy? You run me in your database and see whether I'm tax compliant, something like that. So we need a government not to be in a panic, because I think now we are sort of like desperate, trying to look for any sort of things. Let us open the taxation debate to the public, because taxation debate has always been an exclusion of very few people to determine taxation rates. Let us open the taxation debate to see how we can expand our tax base, so that we see who is paying and who is not paying. And I can tell you by then, and it's only by that solution that you can be able to say, yes, here is where we're heading to, and here is how much we're going to collect, and here is how our taxes are going to be utilized.
How is the economy doing? You know, each time this tax debate comes up, I think about the economy and whether or not this cow that we want to milk is healthy. And of course, for it to be healthy, you've got to be feeding it. So I'm looking at all those bits and putting them together. How is the economy doing vis-a-vis how much we want to get from it, tax-wise?
Very simple mathematics, not mathematics, but just simple logic, is that you can only collect more if you are growing, if you are getting richer. And we are being told that the rate at which we expected to grow as an economy is not the rate at which we are currently. We are going to be at 6.7%, but we are at 4.3%. So that tells you something. But also, what is also very current and tells you that we are actually not doing well is that URA had a shortfall this February this year of 415 billion Ugandan shillings. And this money is not from anywhere else. It's from business taxes, exercise duty, corporation tax, withdrawing tax, VAT business. Now, it tells that the businesses are not working well. So the business environment is not at its best. It's not working well. So it tells that the economy is struggling. And we need it to be boosted. So to boost this economy, I can tell you is that it does not require, it requires some austerity measures, seriously. Like to decide and we cut our expenditures so that we can be able to live within our means. Because if you look at URA going to collect 15 billion and you have a budget of 29 billion, I mean, that is too far away. So you keep on borrowing. And that's why Bank of Uganda is warning, I think we likely to start defaulting in terms of paying our obligations. So the economy is not doing well, for sure. We are still on the mercy of the rain-fed agriculture, which I think we should have moved away from that a long time ago. We are being told that there's serious inefficiency in our public investment management. World Bank is telling us that 60% of the funds we invest in public investments actually go to waste because of so many inefficiencies. So I think as a nation, we need again to be able to fix some of these challenges that we are facing. If you have a road, construct it on time and let it be of that particular amount of money. So if you look at the Northern Bypass and you're wondering when it's likely to be finished, me and you can't even know the end of it. Because the way it started, it was like it was going to be finished in the next following year. But if you look at it right now, you're like, okay, I think we are likely to stay with this thing for the next 3-4 years to come. So those are some of the challenges the economy is facing. But I would think for me is that people need to be very realistic. The biggest challenge we are facing in this country is that we are spending beyond our means. That's it. If we can bring it down, stop creating districts, reduce the number of administrative costs, reduce inefficiency in a public administration, and live within what we can, and set priorities. Do you know there are some sectors in this country that don't have plans? You are a sector, they give you money, but you have no plan at all. That is a wastage of public resources, because what are you spending on if you don't have a plan at all? So we need those kind of things to be fixed, and then we can move.
Let's get back to this social media tax, the proposed one. And there's been a growing debate about our technology and whether or not that's a niche we can tap into as a country. You've talked about agriculture. Some folks think that is our comparative advantage. We need to dwell a great deal on that, see how we improve it, see how we mechanize agriculture and move away from the rudimentary way of doing it. But then other folks think we can't tap into this technology thing. You know, we can see how we I don't know, grow stretch that envelope. The other day, some people were telling us they manufactured cars at Makerere. With all due respect, I was chit-chatting with them and telling them, you guys literally assembled this car. They were not too happy with my comment, but we laughed about it. But there are folks that think we can push in that direction. Can we? Now, especially that we're saying, you talked about, making data a little bit more costly, making innovation a little bit harder. Is that something we can do? Is that an area, is that territory that we can, plunge in, or is it punching above our weight? Because some people will tell you, look, can we make cars better than Japanese? But you can grow food better than them.
I mean, you see, because that's what we are talking about. What is our comparative advantage in this country? And I've said it. We will never beat the Japanese in production of vehicles. We will never, because for them, for the last 50 years, that's where they put their investment in. So, innovations for the Japanese is around automobile.
But some people will say, well, people back then thought that no one can make phones better than Nokia. Today, the story is different. Totally different. You don't hear of Nokia anymore. Like we did back then, really, honestly speaking.
Yes, I mean... The
Samsungs of this world and others have taken over, but it's because they thought, no, we can actually move this mountain.
I think it's the periods in which we are in. Because look at those countries where those who decided to go into those areas and what they had. Because those are countries where you find that they didn't have any other choice. Probably that's what they had. If you go to some of these Asian tigers, is that mostly you find them that they really invest from the beginning. They really invested so much in ICT infrastructure to be able to bring out that one. And at the speed at which they are right now, so that for us to start on with all these challenges that we are talking about, I think we might be chasing the wind from that perspective. I'm not saying we should not try, but I'm saying that shouldn't be our major focus. Because our major focus, I know, is that however much the Europeans are going to get advanced, they will never beat us in growing beans and potatoes. Never. Because for us, where we are, where God put this country, is that if we concentrate and invest into it properly, we can feed them. As they produce the vehicles, we can feed them and buy their vehicles. It's all about the comparative advantage. So if you want to start the production of the cars, then let us decide and invest it in a serious way, but not just throw in $1 billion or $2 billion. I think that is a wastage of resources, from my perspective. If you want to start to have massive production of vehicles, I mean, let us say, okay, this is our frontline project and invest into it. Like how we're investing in Karuma, how we're investing in Simba. I mean, you can see these are frontline projects. Government went ahead and put money massively. We are saying we want roads. You can see government putting massively in roads. So if we want to have frontline projects, let us invest them in that particular manner. And as such, I can tell you is that if we keep on abandoning agriculture, 70% of our entire nation is not going to benefit from the economic growth that we're talking about. Because 70% are all engaged in agriculture production. And that is a low-hanging fruit for us to develop.
How about that if we are to capitalize on that our comparative advantage, which is agriculture, that we cease to do it using the hand-hoe business, that we go technological about that as well. You know, there's a documentary I was watching, and farmers somewhere were using apps to do many different things, you know, be able to tell, okay, now which weather is it going to be like this time, and all these different things. Is that not something that we can do? That yes, we can stick to our comparative advantage, but that we technologize it if there be such a word.
We advance it. We become advanced in what we do well, you know, in what is advantageous to us. And I think for me, you are right when you say let's encourage our young entrepreneurs to invest their ICT innovations into agriculture, to know which kind of variety should we grow. Are my beans sick? Can I have an application that can tell me these beans are not doing well, so that I can be able to improve their nutrition? I mean, if we go into that, I can tell you, yes, definitely. Just go into Kenya here. Just even a small application of connecting buyers and sellers just boosted the production for vegetable farmers in Kenya. Just as simple as that, I was saying, this is a farmer, this is a seller. Who wants? Everybody gets an application, they say the prices, they say the location. Oh, on Thursday, I'm coming to collect. Just that, as simple as that. And if we advance it and then say, let's go into real ICT and agriculture, I can tell you, it is the lowest hanging fruit this country can get. Yes, we can keep on putting more funds in other projects. I mean, but I think for me is that investing heavily and strategically in agriculture could boost our industrial production and revolution.
I know that you're a part of the process of putting together our budget. Some people don't want you to be, but you insist on being a part of the process, which is a good thing because we get to have you there as our eyes. But from what you see, the process is not fully, finalized, if you like. Bits and pieces still being put together. Are we on track? Do you see a glimmer of hope? We talk about middle income status 2020. We talk about, alleviating people from poverty and lessening the poverty levels. As of last year, more people actually sank into poverty.
Yeah.
Do you see things get better?
Let me tell you from the optimistic point of view, is that Uganda is a very rich country, and that the money we have is enough to take us a mile ahead, and that we have the best persons running, in terms of technocrats, I'm not talking about politicians, the best persons running the system, we have them in this country.
So why is the system failing?
Very educated. But the biggest challenge with it we get is that politics is not listening to science. And that's where the danger is. If you have politicians who are not listening to technocrats, then everything is messed up. Because now you'll find technocrats. Let me tell you, meet a cow, one of the, your close technocrat could be a chief administrative officer. The times when they were with the councillors, before they were decentralized, I'm telling you that those were the most scared cows I've ever seen. Some of them will not even spay the cow simply because the council is likely to throw them out. So if we could have politicians who can listen to it, I'm not saying that the technocrats are all angels, but I can tell you is that when there are some best planners, the best planners in Africa produced in this country. I've seen them. But when you have politicians who don't want to oversee the execution of these plans, then that's where you have a problem. And that's from my optimistic point of view. So you have the best people, you have the best plan. But when it comes to execution, then there you get a problem. So that's why now you find supplementary budget appears. And if you look through the supplementary budget, then you find some things that really are not supposed to be part of supplementary budget at all.
Salaries.
So you say salaries, and you're like, okay. When did this happen? But simply because the pressures on the budget, you have, the priorities tend to take a different shape. You have, for example, I usually give the example of Parliament. You are building new chambers. It is very important, but would this be the right time to build these new chambers? That can be a debate. You want to construct, like 4 or 5 mega projects. SGR, you have Isimba, you have Karuma, Entebbe Express Highway, Northern Bypass, Southern Bypass. Why don't we say one by one and then we complete it so that we can have more funds that we can allocate these social sectors for the quality of life of Ugandans. But still knowing that this year we are finishing Karuma, next year we are finishing Isimba, next year we are going to start with SGR. Rome was not built in one day. So when you don't agree on setting priorities and everybody wants everything to be done at the same time, then you create a problem.
But again, when I see sometimes government people doing that, I don't know whether they do it right. Some of you folks in civil society say, but you see, we're not moving as fast as we should. You guys are being sloppy and so on. So you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. No.
I think everything has a cost. And I think that's what I've learned, is that when you don't do something and do another, there is an opportunity cost for each and everything. So but you need to decide and say, this is where I'm heading to. But if you want to head everywhere, then you are not likely to reach nowhere at the end of the day. And for me, that's the biggest challenge we have in this country, setting of priorities. Because if you have 20 priorities and you have little money to finance all these priorities, then at the end of the day, you have issues with the quality, you have issues with the timely finishing of projects, you have issues with the people accepting the project because everything is being bombarded on them. So I think for me, it is a question of setting priorities, and we agree with them. Yes, some people are going to not have now, but we know very well that once we finish, everybody is going to get on board. I think that's very important.
Well, hopefully everybody gets on board and everything gets okay. Julius Mukunda, as always, pleasure having you here sharing your thoughts. Thank you for talking to us.
Thank you so much. Oh, happy Easter Monday.
To you too. We're glad we were able to have you and making your Easter Monday uncomfortable, dragging you out of bed.
No.
But you promised that you will serve this country.
I do.
So we have to keep testing that. This guy is serious about this country. Let's bother them on public holidays. And here they come. But thank you. That's it for the big story. We'll take a quick break. Morning at NTV continues shortly.